I always wondered what would happen if my broker firm fails. What would happen to my investments? So in this video, I'll share what I found. People used to think financial institutions, particularly the large ones, were safe as they were well regulated and too big to fail. Well, the global financial crisis as well as the recent bank failures have proved otherwise. This got me wondering, what happens if my broker fails? What happens to my assets? So here's what I learned. Before we get there though, we need to first understand what a nominee account is. Broker firms use a separate company which acts as the legal owner of their shares, but you remain the beneficial owner, meaning all dividends and proceeds from the transactions are paid to you. This also means that you lose voting entitlements because, well, you're not the legal owner. That's probably why you don't get invited to the annual general meeting to vote when you think you should have. No, they're not rude and ignoring you, they just don't know you at all. This asset segregation into nominee accounts is mandated by the Financial Conduct Authority and is a legal requirement for these firms. That's one of the perks of dealing with an FCA-registered broker. Another being coverage under the Financial Service Compensation Scheme, FSCS for short. The usefulness of nominee accounts is that you don't have to deal with all the admin stuff and instead someone else manages that for you. Most of these nominee accounts also come with nice features like dashboard, apps, etc., particularly the new trading platforms that have popped up in recent years. While broker failures are rare, it has happened before, and hence this nominee account arrangement is also known as client asset segregation. In other words, your assets are separate from the broker's asset. Now, broker failures are rare but have happened in the past. Notable recent names include Reyker Securities SVS, Beaufort Securities, Fish Horton Finney and Pritchard. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. But client asset segregation does not mean you can relax, at least not fully. That's because clients with assets in a failed broker face a prolonged period without access to their assets during administration particularly. During that time, you won't be able to undertake any market trades as your assets are sort of frozen because of the ongoing administrative procedures. Asset segregation, however, does not fully protect against administrative costs. In the Beaufort Security case, PricewaterhouseCoopers was appointed as the administrator and their high administrator costs were controversially charged to client assets, prompting legislative questions. In the end, a £10,000 cap per person was implemented and luckily it was covered by the FSCS. I've linked an article in the description if you want to read more about this case. Nowadays, I understand brokers are subject to capital requirements by regulators intended to cover administration costs in case they cease trading. If a broker's capital is insufficient to cover the administration costs and client assets are at risk, the FSCS can pay up to £85,000 per investor. So to recap, here are several layers of protection in action. First, your asset segregation. Second, broker capital requirements, and third and last resort, FSCS compensation. That said, it is still stressful for customers when their assets are frozen whilst administration procedures are underway. This can take years to reach a conclusion. There are things you can't quite protect against though, for example fraud. You can't fully protect against that because the sad reality is that individuals are capable of doing terrible things. Fraud can happen in any firm. The best firms have great measures in place to make fraud more difficult to occur. So, what can you do as an investor? Firstly, you should verify that a broker is FCA regulated, covered by the FSCS and operates through nominee accounts. Secondly, you should scrutinize brokers' business model and financial health and to be wary of firms with potential conflicts of interest, such as those trading on their own account. Thirdly, perhaps consider diversifying assets across multiple brokers. I have to stress though, diversification here only really works if you've come up with a shortlist of strong candidates, ideally using the criteria mentioned above. The good news is that you probably don't have to worry too much about it because broker firm failures are rare. If they do occur, you should be protected by having your assets segregated. If that did not happen and there were additional costs, you could be eligible for compensation by the FSCS. If you found this video useful, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.